So Bob Arum come out recently with some good information about Shakur Stevenson. It feels like he's the top guy in the lightweight division. He feels like nobody can beat him. Not even a Tank Davis at this point. Says talent is just too good, and still thinks he's a tremendous talent, tremendous fighter. He says I still think he's a tremendous talent, and I think he'll be any lightweight with the possible exception of Keyshawn Davis. He said neither guy wants to fight each other, and that speaks volumes. I know that Keyshawn Davis is on his side as far as being a top fighter at top rank. He's the top 135 he has right now, besides Baranchik and Lomachenko in his stable, the guys who are both champions. But Shakur Stevenson is known as one of the least guys to get hit in the sport of boxing. He's like a Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker, almost. And a lot of people compare him to a lot of defensive fighters from the past, even Floyd Mayweather. A lot of fighters don't get compared to guys like that. But as we seen Keyshawn Davis's growth recently, he's doing a lot in the sport to put himself in a position at that 135 spot. And if you ask me personally, I think that one of those guys are going to push each other out of the division if they're not going to fight each other. Whoever gets the Tank Davis fight first, that will be a spot where it could happen. Or even if it doesn't happen, they're not going to fight each other. So one of those guys are going to have to relinquish the belt if they want to become undisputed. And at this point right now, it looks like Keyshawn Davis is in a spot to get a belt first. And if Lomachenko was an option, they want to keep having in-house fights. It could be a point where Keyshawn Davis and Lomachenko would end up being a fight. And that would be 2 belts on the line. And then Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis will have the other 2 belts. And I know Shakur Stevenson, unless he goes and fights Tank Davis within the next 12 months, he might end up dropping those belts and moving on. Not saying that he will, but he's not going to fight Keyshawn Davis. And with Keyshawn Davis being a guy who's younger, I don't know, whoever's better at the weight class. It don't seem like Keyshawn Davis is having trouble making 135. He's a smaller guy. And me personally, I feel like Shakur Stevenson, he puts on a little weight. He's still growing. He's growing a lot faster. He's getting bigger, stronger, faster. So a lot of things can contribute to that. But I know they're not going to fight each other. If something major doesn't happen, it'll have to be something drastic that happens for these guys to fight each other. They've already said from day one they're not going to be fighting each other. And they're going to try to reign supreme at that weight class as far as at 135 until one of those guys end up, I guess, pushing each other out. But he said with the possible exception of Keyshawn Davis, he don't think that Shakur Stevenson will lose at 135, even to a Tank Davis. But Keyshawn Davis is still an option for Bob. If Bob has a chance to make that fight, and if those guys were to fight each other, I don't know. Maybe he's thinking in his mind that he would go with Keyshawn Davis. He didn't literally say that, but he said with the possible exception. Said possible, so he's not saying, yeah, I think Keyshawn Davis will beat him. But in the back of his mind, I know he knows, hey, I can get him in the best position to probably beat him if they were to fight, but it's not an option right now. But at the same time, when you really think about it, what is he saying as a whole? Like, if something happened, will they fight each other? But he knows they won't fight each other. He just knows that. But that goes to show that Tank Davis is not in his stable. Shakur is not in his stable right now. And he feels like he'll be able to beat Lomachenko, Baranchik, and Tank Davis. Like, he didn't just say Shakur Stevenson is not with Top Rank no more. So Bob didn't say, yeah, we still got Loma and we still got Baranchik. He didn't say that. He said with the possible exception of Keyshawn Davis, he'll be able to beat all those guys at 135. All of them. So it's not like Bob was playing favorites to the point where he's like, yeah, I think he'll beat Loma and wash him. But he did say that he didn't say Loma and go out there and beat him as well, though. He said the exception of Keyshawn Davis. So that speaks volumes to how much he thinks about Keyshawn Davis to this point right now. Bob favors Keyshawn Davis a lot over most of those other guys. Lomachenko, Baranchik. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to bait him into setting up a fight with those guys to possibly happen in the future. Or maybe it could happen and maybe it's on the table. I don't know. in the future, but maybe he's trying to talk his way into another fight so he can be able to set something up with Shakur Stevenson and be able to unify those belts after their dealings and the way that fight ended the last time with him showing people leaving the arena and everything else. I've been to sporting events all my life, hundreds of sporting events, and people always leave early. I remember when Michael Vick was in his prime, people was leaving early because when you got 50,000 people and another 50,000 outside, it's hard. You won't get home until probably 5 or 6 hours later with that many people around. So a lot of people still have children and babysitters and everything at home. So a lot of thoughts don't go into certain things when people are thinking about people leaving the arena early, but it happens. But for Bob to say this, it speaks volumes to how much he really thinks about Shakur Stevenson's talent. And he's picking him basically over Lomachenko and Baranchik. A lot of people look at Lomachenko as a guy who he favors in most fights, even though the judges didn't favor Lomachenko against Teofimo. The judges didn't favor Lomachenko against Devin Haney. Even though Shakur Stevenson said that Lomachenko was Bob Arum's son and everything else, he still favors him over those guys, with the possible exception of Keyshawn Davis. Whatever that means, I have some thoughts about what that means. It means to me that if the fight did happen, he looks at it like it's a 50-50 almost. That's my opinion. That's not what he said, just my opinion. But Keyshawn Davis is still a good talent. But goes to show how much he actually thinks about his talent to put him over Tank Davis, though. But that's all I got. Like and subscribe.